So Rashi points out, right, he picks up on this and he says over here, that really it's not directed at Moshe. Moshe happened to be there, kind of the right person at the wrong time, the wrong place, and he makes a comparison, like someone who's going to try to pick out the good stuff from a field of weeds, and he can't help but, pick out the weeds from the field of good stuff, and by picking out the weeds, it can't help accidentally, so to speak, pick out some of the good stuff, which of course is problematic, because the Kodesh Baruch Hu is meduyak, he's very accurate in his criticisms and whatever he does, and he can divide the earth and swallow only the bad guys and leave behind the good guys. It's not like human beings who have this margin of error, where they're going to make mistakes. So the Sister Chachamim explain that even though Rashi says what he says, but the reality is that as Moshe was negligent to some degree over here. And where do we see that? How do we pick it up? So the Sefer Zev Yitzraf explains the following thing. It's a remarkable concept, and I wouldn't have seen this, I never would have noticed this basically, and I think most people would have noticed it. But the first time that Hashem speaks to Moshe Rabbeinu and tells Moshe about the month and what to tell the Jewish people, the pasuk actually starts off by saying, over here, second pasuk. The first pasuk is back here when Hashem says to Moshe Rabbeinu. It says, "V'haya b'yom hashishi," and it's going to be on the sixth day. Now the Gemara Megillah explains that any time a pasuk begins with the word "v'haya," it's always going to be an allusion to something good coming up. It's a siman tov of good things coming up. That's the way the word Bahaya is understood by the Gemara. Later on, when they actually go and collect the man, the pasuk says Vayehi b'yam hashishi. It means basically exactly the same thing as far as we're concerned on a pshat level. But the Gemara in Megillah says that any time a pasuk begins with the word Vayehi, the Vayehi b'me'ach Hashverosh, in the days of Achashverosh, is an allusion to something bad coming up for the Jewish people. What about it says Vayehi yom Rishon Yom Echad Yom Sheni, whatever. So the Gemara concludes that it can be either a good thing or a bad thing. But if it's a V'hi B'Yom, right, that combination is usually an allusion to something negative coming up, right? So in the pasuk, when they actually go and collect the man, it says V'hi B'Yom HaShishi. By Moshe Rabbeinu, when Kodesh Baruch Hu says to Moshe Rabbeinu to tell them, it says V'haya B'Yom HaShishi. But over here, later on, that's pasuk says Tet Zayin pasuk Hey, and over here it has Zayin pasuk Chov Beis, which some 17 psukim later, it says Vayehi. So who would notice that? But Zev Yitzraf points this out, and in fact the Targum Yonason also picks up and notices the difference, and he explains the following thing. What's the negative thing? What's the positive thing? I mean, okay, so Moshe tells him, Hashem tells Moshe to say this, and you could assume that maybe, well, let me ask the question, what's better? What is it better to know a miracle's coming up and expect it and see it fulfilled, or is it better not to know about the nice, not to know about the nice thing coming up, and it catches you by surprise? Seemingly, the surprises catch us off guard and would be a more positive thing. So, if anything, the fact that Moshe didn't tell them at all about the nice of the double omer in the Mishnah Lechem, that should be reason for even more simcha. So that pasuk should begin with Bahaya, and at least both in Bahaya, but not Vayehi over here the second time. So the question is, what's the Vayehi an allusion to? So the Zev Yitzraf explains that really what was supposed to happen when a Kodesh Baruch Hu told Moshe Rabbeinu to tell the Jewish people about the second Omer, that they're supposed to collect Erev Shabbos for Shabbos, he explains that they weren't supposed to actually collect the second Omer, but rather what they were supposed to have done was picked up the first Omer, and as they picked it up, in whatever container they're going to pick it up in, they say the words Lechaved Shabbos Kodesh, and the first Omer, the single Omer, would have become two Omers before their very eyes. That's what was supposed to have happened. That's what Moshe was supposed to have told Bnei Israel, and that's the way it was supposed to play itself out. And that would have been, of course, a fantastic miracle. That's a source of sin. That's a source of joy over here, right? What happens instead? Moshe doesn't tell them that. They go out and they collect 2 omers of mud. So what happens instead? Instead, they go out to the field and they pick up 2 omers. And the miracle is that the second one doesn't rot, which for them is a huge miracle, because up until now, every single day, they took an extra amount of man, and it would disappear. It would rot. But now the miracle is the fact that they didn't lose the surplus man that they were actually collecting, which was certainly a source of excitement. But the question is, what's a bigger miracle? Is it a bigger miracle to pick up 2 omers of man and the second one doesn't rot? Or is it a bigger miracle to pick up 1 omer and say there was Lechav Shabbos Kodesh, which is completely a non-physical activity, and transform, Kabbalistically, so to speak, or mystically, spiritually, this first omer, a single omer, into 2 omers in the year? Obviously, that's a much bigger miracle. And that's the reason why that there's less amount of simcha by the second one. The Bahaya is alluding to what was supposed to have happened, and the V'yehi, says the Sevitraf, is alluding to what actually happened, and therefore they weren't able to conceptualize and to experience the full extent of the miracle meant to happen. And this is crucial. This is extremely crucial, because everything about the experience in the Midbar is preparation for living in Eretz Yisrael. And as the Rambam points out in PARSHA Mishnayos, that when it comes to Eretz Yisrael, what the Shema is telling you, if you take care of the Ruchnis, HaKadosh Baruch will take care both of the Ruchnis and the Gashmis. He helps you out Ruchnis-wise and the Gashmis as well. Because Tefillah changes the Metzius. Physically involved in the world, that's Esav's world, it's Bilam's world, as Rashi points in Parshas Balak and Parshas V'yechi, right? That's to be physically involved, to manipulate the reality, to bring about, physical results. That's the world of Edom. That's the world of Esav. We have to do it because we sink down to that world. But Klal Yisrael, their main mitzvah, their main mahus is to change the world, but their charuchni is to have the impact on the world of Gashmius. That's what's supposed to happen. And you can tell a person, oh, by the way, that's what was supposed to happen. And we're supposed to say, L'chav Shabbos Kodesh, of course, is a halacha, by the way. When you buy things for Shabbos, you cook things for Shabbos, you should say L'chav Shabbos Kodesh. But then the Magen Avraham brings it down. Because this is what we do, Erev Shabbos, to imbue whole things with Kedusha. And it changes the mitzvah, whether we can see it today or not. We don't have the same type of miracles, but had the Jewish people done it back then in the Midbar, that would have changed everything, because the Jewish people would have had a first-hand experience that we can use the world of Ruchnis, we can use Tefillah, we can use Dibur to change the physical reality. And because it didn't work out, because Moshe did not teach that extremely important lesson, later on, says the Sifrei Chachamim, that when HaKadosh Baruch Hu is criticizing, Dasan Aviram for going out to the field to collect the man, he says, "Me'antem lishmor es mitzvosai v'esarosai." He includes Moshe Rabbeinu, because since Moshe Rabbeinu did not hand over this very important limud, usually comes back to the schus of Klal Yisrael, they were zeicha to that. Then, as a result of that, they didn't get the understanding. They didn't have the level of emunah they're supposed to have in a Kodesh Baruch Hu situation, and therefore Moshe is held responsible. And that's what the pasuk is telling us. Kodesh Baruch Hu is not missing. Kodesh Baruch Hu is not, including Moshe Rabbeinu just to be polite to everybody else, not to embarrass other people who are doing, the chatayim. But because Moshe is responsible on some level, that Kodesh Baruch Hu is including him as well. And because we didn't learn this lesson of working b'derech ruchnius to accomplish the gashmius, Klal Yisrael has never been the same. And that's what results in the attack from Amalek, because the gematria of Amalek is Safek, is doubt. Amalek, they ask, the whole, as Rashi brings down, the whole story of Amalek is because the Jewish people question Hashkacha Pratis, Hayesh Hashem B'Kibin Imayim. Is Hashem amongst us or is he not amongst us in the end? That's what the pasuk says. That's what Rashi brings down. Amalek attacks, because the enemy of the Jewish people is always going to be a physical, outward projection and manifestation of that which is lacking in Klal Yisrael. We create our own enemies. They become real. They become physical. We have to fight against them. But he would never have existed, as Rashi points out, if the Jewish people didn't have to be put back on the ground once again and live in that everyday physical natural world, because we didn't learn the lesson. And because of this, everything else goes wrong from this point onward. And if you're hearing the limud over here by the man, Right? And of course, it ties to Purim because of Amalek and the Suffolk.